Well, although the selling pressure continues, there are plenty of stocks that are holding up quite well. Bajaj Finance is still up almost about 4% odd. TV18 Broadcast has had a very good run lately. That one is up almost 5.5% odd. Biocon, it was the standout brokerage of the day. That one is up almost about 3% odd. And Tata Elxsi up almost about 3% odd. By the way, some of these consumption stocks like Devyani International, etc. have been doing well. Sapphire Foods, which is also another franchise, belongs to the same family of Devyani International and that entire group. That stock has hit a fresh 52-week high today, up almost 2.5% odd. But the big positive trigger that we're seeing from a health standpoint is the massive drop in coronavirus cases, especially in densely populated cities like Mumbai and Delhi. As Omicron fears have eased, we talked to key diagnostic players to find out whether testing has fallen sharply or not. Anecdotal evidence suggests that because the Omicron is not as severe, people prefer home testing rather than doing the RT-PCR test. But let's find out. We have a key diagnostic player joining us. Om Manchanda, the managing director of Dr. Lal Pathlabs, is with us. Mr. Manchanda, good morning and thanks so much for joining us. It is a huge relief to see this drop in coronavirus cases. We've also perhaps seen a drop in testing because a lot more people are now doing testing at home with those kits. But you tell us, what are the numbers suggesting and what is the situation right now?
Yeah, good morning. Clearly, I'm seeing the same trend in our numbers as well. I think it started rising in the last week of December, first week of Jan. Then it went up in second week, and I'm seeing the last week the trend has started falling. Though the positivity is still on a higher side, but I think in Delhi and Mumbai we are clearly seeing the trend, which is falling trend.
Right. So, good morning, Prashant here. We were speaking with the BMC officials here in Mumbai earlier in the week. And one thing which appears to be the case, and I think it's true in Delhi as well, is the number of self-tests, home tests has increased quite a bit, whereas the number of RT-PCR tests perhaps has taken a dip. Self-tests at home, because this variant has been milder, and anecdotally, people are sort of have a fever for a few days and then get better. People maybe are not following up with the RT-PCR test. Is that something which you suspect is going on as well?
That probably is true because in last wave that variable wasn't there, and I think this time at home testing, what one is seeing is very high. But probably we don't have way to monitor that, at least in our case, because we are focused on RT-PCR. But I still would say that if you compare a last 10 days trend, the number of cases that were coming, let's say a week before, number of cases coming now is definitely on a declining side. So I think one can safely assume that probably it is falling. And I was also looking at data of the previous wave. Last time it actually took almost 6 or 7 weeks for numbers to fall. And this time I think it's been already 3 weeks and we are seeing a trend. So my sense is probably safely one can assume that we are on the falling side of the curve.
Okay, that is great. But what does this mean for your own business? I mean, I'm expecting that in Q4, the numbers will look very good because of the sharp rise that we saw in testing at the start of the third wave. But can you quantify it for us?
Actually, just to compare last wave versus this wave, last wave actually had two components of testing going up. One was RT-PCR testing, other was COVID-allied testing, which we have outlined in our numbers. This time, actually, whatever little spike happened, that happened mostly on RT-PCR. It really didn't happen on COVID-allied test. That is primarily if you actually end up visiting doctors or end up getting hospitalized. And fortunately, this time hospitalizations are very less. So one didn't see any spike on COVID-allied test. So whatever spike was seen in was only in RT-PCR testing.
Right.
And so, one more thing I want to add is that this time I find is that the different cities are following a different curve. While one sees a declining trend in Mumbai and let's say in Delhi, but I think though we are not very strong in South, but one sees that in some southern cities there is a bit of a spike last week.
Dr. Manchanda, again, I mean, if you can quantify a little bit, the non-COVID testing, how is that going on? Non-COVID related testing.
So given that we are in silent period, so I may not be very specific on these numbers, but clearly over a period of time, we have always highlighted that the focus continues to remain on non-COVID testing because that's a sticky part of our business. There will always be some baseline numbers, but some of these spikes will always influence the way revenue grows. But this time the spike has been very, very short and also has been little milder, not little, quite milder than what it was in wave 2. So our focus will continue to remain on non-COVID testing. However, non-COVID testing has been fluctuating quarter on quarter, but I think the best way would be, we are right now in the 8th quarter post-pandemic. My sense is the greater analysis would be, a deeper analysis would be post this quarter when we know 2-year CAGR on non-COVID, which I continue to see a healthy trend, what industry was delivering even pre-COVID times. So which is where our focus will continue to remain, which is non-COVID.
Okay. Can you tell us, I mean, now you can give us a little more clarity on what's happening with the integration with Suburban Diagnostics post that deal. The expectation was that your presence in the West region will go up because of Suburban's market share there. But can you tell us how has the integration been so far? What are the big synergies that you would expect?
Absolutely. I think that's clearly focus going forward. And we are looking forward to growing our presence in Western region. And as we mentioned earlier, that we will continue to focus on Suburban as a standalone brand. And we are clearly identifying the areas where Suburban can actually expand both on geography as well as segments. And we'll focus on that. And as you already know that this transition is a bit dependent on FY22 numbers for the founders. So we will wait it out for next couple of months before we get deeper into action that we take in that market. But next year, clearly big focus area will be West market for us through Suburban.
Dr. Manchanda, just to take off from that point, I mean, consolidation for investors in this space is a big theme. Some 80-85% of the market is still unorganized. But at the same time, like I don't know if this has happened in your industry, but many industries during the last 2.5 years has seen the rise of, startups, disruption, digitally led, tech led. I mean, we know for a fact, anecdotally, that health tech, for example, is also something which has gotten a lot of funding. Are you tracking the progress there? How will that? Because I mean, before the rise of this, tech-led businesses, the assumption was that we got a very long runway when the unorganized market will continue to consolidate in a big way, and people like you will continue to benefit. Are we on track, or will we see more disruption, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, one must realize in healthcare, the core of proposition is the quality, right? So you need to trust a brand. So I think your point is very clear that tech is definitely invading healthcare as well. And these startups are definitely working closely with us. And I'm also studying some of these global businesses that are really legacy or offline and now online. So I think in my view, it's going to be a hybrid model. It's not one or the other. And clearly, I think the companies that really adopt technology faster will be the successful ones. And we hope to do so going forward. So in my view, it's technology plus traditional models together need to work and to move forward. I don't think it's only going to be digital or only going to be the offline model. I think it's going to be omni-channel strategy that one will have to follow.
Okay, I just had one follow-up to what Prashant was asking you, and I guess he's also trying to come to that conclusion that because of so much competition, because of new technology, newer players coming in, will well-established, well-entrenched players like yourselves have to give up on margins a bit? Will pricing get a bit more competitive? I mean, for the last at least, 6-8 quarters, you've been maintaining your margins at 28 to 30%. Do you think you'll have to sacrifice that a bit as more competition seeps in?
I think if you track all my investor calls for the last 4 or 5 years, I've always said that we are focused on volume growth. So we are trying our level best to improve efficiencies so that we are able to maintain our margin and still remain competitive on pricing. I think that thesis still remains, and I'm very clear in my mind that we will have to be efficient and compete on pricing. Because pricing will actually, according to me, will be the last resort to grow. It will be all widening geographical footprint and driving volume growth. I think it's safe to assume that pricing pressure will be there in times to come, but we'll have to really tighten our seatbelt and run our business efficiently.
I mean, talking about disruption and new companies, etc., the most credible disruption which turned out to be eventually a fraud was Theranos, wasn't it? I mean, a few years ago, with the blood testing technology, which was supposed to completely upend the industry. But I mean, I'm just referring to that because the trial of the founder of Theranos, I think, just finished. So that is, but I mean, of course, we don't know if disruptive technologies like that will come out of nowhere. One doesn't know, but I mean, that one did not work. Dr. Manchanda, great to have you with us here. Thank you very much for joining us. And it's great speaking with you here on CNBC TV 18. So that's Dr. Manchanda, Dr. Lal, a leader, at least in their market, geographically, as far as diagnostic testing is concerned. We'll take a very quick break here. We're back with more on the other side.